The Sonic franchise has a serious problem with writing introverts correctly. In a series with larger-than-life personalities and unlimited potential, they're often seen as a people needing to be fixed or possessing some underlying problem for why they act in these specific ways. So who, if anyone at this point, accurately fits the description of an introvert, and why does it even matter so much? The 90s were an exciting time to be a fan of gaming. An exciting new mascot in Sonic the Hedgehog had just entered the fray with a new world, story to tell, and by far the thing that the series would become most known for, a colorful cast of new characters, each having their own quirks and background. With 1994 circling around, gone were the days of you having to solely thrash robotic insects and doppelgangers as you made your way towards Dr. Robotnik's curtain call. You were finally met with your first enemy in this new foreign land, one that looked just as vibrant as the orange fox and pink hedgehog you'd met previously. Knuckles the Echidna, sole surviving warrior of the ancient Echidna tribe and protector of the Master Emerald. Being someone who found solace in his mission to uphold the duty of those before him, even if it meant confining himself to his homeland, the Red Hat Echidna had nothing but time on his hands pre the events of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. While we're unsure of when exactly Knuckles' parents and/or extended family passed away, we can be sure of a couple of factors due to the little knowledge understood about his tribe. The Knuckles clan, yes, that is their name, were a group that lived peacefully on Angel Island with several other adjacent clans in various regions around the landmass. At least until the warmongering spree happened, but that's not important to the theme here. With the Echidna tribes in part taking massive inspirations from real-world Mayan and Aztecan culture, we're looking at both a character and people that mirror many of the tendencies those social divisions had. Often possessing an emphasis on the group rather than the individual, many younger members of these specific tribes were taught from an early age what the rest of their lives would consist of. Hunting, gathering, prep work, all the things that consist of ensuring that the community not only survives, but thrives and works towards the greater purpose in question. While there are most likely indeed dedicated times for interpersonal relationship building, most of the efforts put forth were to meet the expectations set in place. As we've all seen over the past 30 years though, Knuckles is a walking example of this, even after the point where he becomes the last surviving Echidna. But what if I told you that there were several factors that possibly point to the concept of Knuckles being an introvert all along? First, we have the aforementioned tribal roots. Everything you do will be for the benefit of our people, as it is your sole purpose in this world. Then, we have the notion that Knuckles is most likely an only child. Admittedly, there aren't consistent enough data results to suggest that parents who produced only one child between one another will see an offspring who turns out to be an introvert 100% of the time. In that same breath though, we cannot disregard the copious amounts of anecdotal evidence online that only children have presented themselves in regards to their identification as introverts. And speaking of which, I am curious if any of you fit into this mold as well. Do you happen to be an only child that's also an introvert? And if so, when did you discover that about yourself? Finally though, we have an article written by Arpita Sahal and Dr. Shivali Sharma from the International Journal of Indian Psychology that delves into the relationship between both birth order and personality traits. The review study goes over how not just environmental and cultural influence dictate someone's tendency to be an introvert, but also the number of child they are, with oldest siblings more often than not being those with more of the introverted traits that we've been speaking about. But how does this apply to Knuckles in any way if I just said we don't know much about his family? Well, look no further than his found brothers in Sonic and Tails. Being in no way, shape, or form related by blood, these three's close friendship and bond settles them into this position, especially considering they all exhibit the traits I'll go into. The middle and younger children of this brotherhood fit snugly into their respective characteristics a la article. Kids found within the middle of the pack, aka Sonic, typically lean either way on a pretty consistent basis between introversion and extroversion, and can shift their mannerisms as such on a dime. The youngest members of the family will more so angle themselves towards extroversion as a result of lessened pressures from not only authoritative figures, but peers as well. As with most cases, the oldest child gets stuck with the short end of the stick, and that's exactly what's happened to our Red Hot Echidna. Oftentimes, both himself and the cast will pry into why Knuckles chooses to stay on Angel Island when there's so much of the world to see, explore, and do, which counteractively has seen itself teetering more into the you should probably do something different with your life category. Sonic Frontiers is the latest example of this, but it's not even the first time that the idea has been toyed with, as back in Sonic Adventure 1, Knuckles' monologues both at the beginning and end of his main campaigns start to see him consider if this is truly what he should make out of his life. Responsibility of guarding the Master Emerald was thrust upon him, and he takes pride in the duty no matter how many times a reconsideration pops into mind, knowing that he's the only person who can be burdened with the duty. Where the issue lies, though, is that whenever Knuckles has this internal dilemma and decides to bring it up out into the world, the people he vents to attempt to offer solutions instead of understanding. From Sonic and Frontiers to Rouge back in Archie, no one can give Knuckles the answer he's looking for and see guarding the Master Emerald as more of a chore than a purpose. As someone who's gone on record stating that he actually enjoys the alone time and just being alone in general, it's hard to say exactly what is the solution Knuckles is looking for anyway, if there is any. But what happens when someone who was never supposed to be an introvert is forced into that position? Silver the Hedgehog is an interesting case, because he is an extrovert with introvert tendencies, as the situation that he found himself born into resulted in a lack of understanding about how to navigate the world and the relationships within it. Contrary to popular opinion, I'm a huge fan of his characterization in the mid to late 2000s with games like Sonic 06 and the Sonic Rivals entries. These titles show off a young boy who has no choice but to present himself as a hardened veteran, seeing that he's the only one capable of saving the time period from which he hails. The cracks begin to unveil his true self, however, like in this instance with Amy near the start of Silver's 06 campaign. For just a couple of moments, he's able to be authentic out loud. A talkative person that rambles on about the things he finds beautiful, be hopeful that his situation can actually change, and indulge in an activity that's not, at least to his knowledge as of yet, directly correlated to the mission. Silver is not an introvert, at least not by the conventional definition. He cares about the world around him and wants to be outgoing or sociable, all the while showing how much of a cinnamon roll he can be when he's not too busy trying to save his future from the supernova disaster of the week. Once his problems are solved, all of that goes out the window. Forced introversion is a phenomenon that can 100% happen based on experiences, as life has a quirk for throwing the unimaginable at you during the absolute worst times. But this is a character in the franchise that suffered from poor writing, and much of the likeness that people saw within Silver, even given his false traits as an introvert, has all but vanished. Someone who's fared a lot better, though, is his partner in crime, Blaze. Retcons aside, both her and her on-again, off-again companion that she has in Silver are quite similar to one another. Where they differ, though, is in consistency. Yet the lavender feline will have to take a back seat for now, since I get the feeling that she'll be receiving her own deep dive soon enough. One day I'll officially hop into doing a season of videos on it, but it's time to talk about the IDW comic run once more. Whisper the Wolf, as our de facto introvert, was actually the very character that kicked off this video idea in the first place, mainly because while she is a great stand-in for showing the effects that manipulation can have on a person, her role as the only introvert of the main IDW cast has been pretty much lost, I think. Spoiler alert for most of Whisper's character arc, as well as some of the most recent chapters of the comics, so if you want to avoid those, skip ahead to this time on screen. The happy-go-lucky person turned to a loner with a thirst for revenge pipeline is nothing new for the Sonic series. Where I find issue with the way that it's been handled concerning Whisper specifically, though, is that it's not far off from what I stated previously about Silver, and admittedly does come from an understanding of previous patterns. It's that her finally getting the much-deserved revenge on Mimic recently will be treated as some sort of band-aid that's finally ripped off. While we can only see a glimpse of the relief that the wolf is justifiably feeling, I can only hope that the writers don't pull a complete 180 of her character and keep her as the yin to not only Tangle's yang, but additionally to the rest of the cast as well. With Whisper and the type of character she's been built up to be, it'd be the perfect opportunity, in my opinion, to showcase the after effects of finally putting a trauma so life-changing, such as the death of a murderer that, killed the people you love, into the forefront. Having to sit with that reality that maybe you were always this timid and selective with who you chose to surround yourself with, exemplifying that both of these facets are more than okay to be. So this is more of a concern for the future, but it'll probably be a while before we get to see the Spec Ops Wolf Girl anyhow. The Sonic franchise has a serious problem with writing introverts correctly. In a series with the larger-than-life personalities and unlimited potential, They're often seen as people needing to be fixed or possessing some underlying problem for why they act in these specific ways. But is this even a problem? I know a lot of you are probably wondering why I didn't bring up the resident edge boy himself, Shadow, at all throughout this entire video, and to be honest, he's the answer to a lot of the problems I have with the other characters mentioned. This isn't me saying that Shadow is the perfect Sonic character. I mean, he's had many a problem with characterization in the past, but he's as close as we can get to someone who fits the description of an introvert. Most of what he does is driven by his own ambition. He's not concerned with how others perceive him, and to top it all off, rarely do the other members of the cast try to change who he is. Does that stem from them knowing how stubborn he can be? Well, yes, but then we have to ask, why is that something they allot Shadow but not Knuckles? I'm unsure if this is a root from the writers not wanting the other characters like Silver, Whisper, or the aforementioned Knuckles to tread too far into Shadow's territory and step on toes, as he is the face of it within this series, but man, does it leave the doors closed on some awesome potential interactions between all of these guys. I really have to ask though, out of everyone I've mentioned and even those I haven't, who was your favorite introvert in the series and are they well written? Personally, I genuinely want to say Knuckles, and even though that's exactly what led to him being left out of a bunch of adventures, it fits with his character and I think that no one should be able to solve the dilemma he has on hand but himself, since that's often what many real-life introverts, such as myself at one point, have had to do on a number of occasions. As always, let me know what you think in the comments below, and be sure to join the Discord if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one.